Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by with, of course, the Season 4 update. Per usual, we saw a significant weapon and meta update within the patch notes, buffing and nerfing various meta choices that we've seen over the past couple of seasons. We also saw the addition of 2 new weapons via the Battle Pass as well. And with that today, I wanted to go through the entire Season 4 meta and break down what to look out for in terms of the absolute meta weapons, our top tier options, some more competitive ones, and then maybe what to avoid as you go through everything as well. So clearly we've got our tier list here, and first things first, we got to talk about our 2 new weapons, the Superi 46 and the Kar 98K. Superi 46 just feels very consistent. Its mobility goes pretty crazy, and then you can play this a lot of different ways. Some sniper support style because it's got a decent damage range, honestly. You can also play it for up close. I really like the feel of this thing. I would say overall, this is absolutely a top tier SMG in my opinion. The only thing that I think holds it back is, despite the fact that its fire rate's not crazy, its magazine capacity is pretty limited. 40 rounds as that extended mag is a bit rough, and so if that were to jump up to 50 or 60, then we're talking, you know, more of a conversation towards absolute meta. But I do think the Superi is a great choice for just general SMG gameplay right now across the board. And the Kar 98K, I mean, this one's a clear and easy choice. This is the meta sniper right now. I think because 1, it's new, 2, it's nostalgic. Everyone's going to be spamming this thing, but objectively speaking here, which I try my best to be as objective as I can with this general list here, so you guys have the most accurate information to base your builds off of. Hey, I should use this, I should use that. The Kar 98K, it's a one-shot sniper. You can get out to like 85 meters or something like that. Really good one-shot range. It's snappy, it's aggressive, it's got good ADS speed. Like, it's checking all the right boxes outside of an infinite one-shot, which is okay. If you learn how to play it, you're gonna be just fine. So it's a better version of the Stalker in my opinion. It's a more nostalgic version of the Cat and the Moors, obviously. So easily falls into that top tier absolute meta category there. Alongside our new weapons, of course, though, we also have plenty of weapon adjustments that were made, various different buffs and nerfs, and so we're gonna dive into these. I've got my handy dandy list of notes of all the changes that took place over to the right and throughout testing how things have been adjusted. So the BP50 ended up seeing some movement nerfs and some aftermarket part movement nerfs as well for the conversion kit, so it's gonna be slower across the board. The thing is, though, the BP50 before the update was so good. You could use it as the conversion kit, it was insane. You could use it as a base rifle, it's insane. And even if the conversion kit maybe is a little bit too slow for you now, whatever the case may be, as a rifle standalone it'd be an absolute meta, and then the 9mm conversion could be in there as well. So like, still, while it is slower, this thing is still one of the best rifles in the game, hands down, in my opinion, just from a pure damage output standpoint. The thing is nasty. Now, the Bal 27 is such a tricky one because if you're hitting shots when it's in its faster fire rate, then it's a top tier rifle for sure. If you're hitting shots in the first 4 bullets, it's more of a competitive rifle. And with this update, they did buff it a little bit. It got some range buffs and then also a lower hand and arm multiplier buff, which is nice to see. It's not going to make its TTK go crazy or anything there. And again, it's kind of like that fringe option here. If you're hitting those first 4 shots and mixing in with the various fire rate, it's probably more competitive. If you're exclusively landing shots in that fast fire rate area, it's more top tier. I'd say maybe that fringe is honestly what brings it more into competitive than anything else. Like, it's so back and forth, they're kind of user dependent, but it's still an awkward rifle. Now, I won't lie, kind of surprised at this, but the Holger 556 ended up getting a close range buff and then also a leg buff. This is already a great rifle. It's limited by its ammo, and that's why it's stuck in top tier here for sure, but its damage, its TTK is great. So a really good gun just got even better. You love to see that. Now, the SVA 545 actually caught a mid damage nerf, so its mid-range damage was now worse, and then also a headshot nerf. And this thing's TTK, it's been consistent, it's been reliable, but those damage nerfs do impact it decently, and I think it's definitely more on level with the Holger, with the MTZ, so on and so forth. Now, even in hyperburst mode where it's still so deadly accurate, that damage nerf is going to be noticeable for sure. So that does drop that down a little bit and added a bit more parity into those top tier rifles. Now, the MCW, already an absolute meta because of its conversion kit, actually ended up getting a base version long range damage buff, which is really what it needed. Its long range TTK was not good enough, whereas its mid range was just decent enough, right? So this is going to help balance out the standard version of the MCW and make that even better than before. But truly, the absolute best version is still going to be on the conversion kit because that thing just absolutely decimates up close. Hey everyone, wanted to take a quick second to shout out my friends over at G Fuel. If you were looking to drop into some games energized and focused, look no further than G Fuel. They got you covered for pretty much everything, honestly. They got the hydration formula tubs, the standard energy tubs, they've got the cans, and best of all, if you want to get anything at all from the G Fuel site, you can throw in code Immortal and get a nice little discount at checkout. And who knows, maybe the more the code gets used, the better chance of our Shaker Cup maybe one day returning. But yeah, if you want to check anything out, the link will be down in the description below. Now the MTZ 556, I think honestly is going to replace that spot where the SVA 545 was, just because the MTZ 556 got a max range buff, which is already great. It got a mid-range buff, and it got a headshot buff. This thing's TTK was already super reliable, super fast across the board. It's a great rifle, and it just got even better. So for resurgence style gameplay, this is going to be one of my top tier choices easily. And then even on big map, it could hold its own too. So the MTZ 556 is definitely one you're going to want to keep an eye on, because this thing is really holding its own right now really well. Now it's also nice to see MW2 weapons getting some attention, and we ended up seeing several different MW2 rifles get some buffs here. So the Kastov 762 ended up getting a mid-range buff, an arm multiplier buff, a lower torso multiplier buff, and a leg multiplier buff. Now this thing is so close to being in the mix, and if you hit your upper body shots with this thing, it goes crazy. What really limits it is when you hit a lower body shot or an arm shot. But if you're getting head shots, chest shots, neck shots, this thing is so close to being top tier. I think this is pretty much getting it as close as it's been to being a top tier rifle, but it is just missing a little bit of something else, whether it's making it slightly easier to use, maybe a bit more of a damage buff, but it got significantly closer to being up there with those other great MW2 rifles. I'm so tempted to put it in the top tier, but I just don't know quite yet. Maybe with the aftermarket part, once that drops and it has no recoil, then we can confidently say, yeah, this is a top tier rifle. But this is one that got buffed, and it's definitely trending upwards right now. Now the Chimera, already a top tier rifle because it's great for sniper support, got buffed as well. Mid damage buff, arm and lower torso multiplier buff as well. Great benefits to the Chimera there. A good gun becomes even better, sort of the trend of this update in specific. So really nice to see there. That one is a standout sniper support option for sure. And by the way, as we are going through all the changes, all the updates here today, if you are new to the channel, every single day, this is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about COD, whether it's news, patch notes, meta breakdowns. It's all right here, so feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and if you enjoy this video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. It is always really appreciated, and it does really help the channel grow. And this is one I really didn't see coming. The ISO Hemlock actually got some buffs. Its mid-range and its long-range got damage buffs. It also got an arm multiplier buff as well. This is one that probably could have been closer to like mediocre. This thing was not hitting, but definitely is a little bit more competitive now, which is nice to see. Keep in mind, back in Warzone 2, this was the rifle for a while. It's definitely had a fall off for sure, but again, trending upward, which is always cool. Another kind of surprising one, the AMR9 ended up seeing a close range damage buff, so they've nerfed that before. They've now buffed it back up a little bit. It also got a range nerf though, so where it did get buffed, it's a shorter range, and it got a mid damage buff too. So the AMR9 still staying in top tier for sure. You could have maybe argued before it was more competitive than anything, but now top tier is a much more appropriate place for it. It's definitely gonna be a little bit better than it was during season 3. Not quite what it once was, where it was like arguably the #1 sub in the game, but definitely back up there. Now this is one that I'm personally very excited for. The FJX Horus got some solid buffs. A close range buff that makes its already crazy fast TTK even faster. A mid buff, a long range buff, a general range buff, close range that extends out that lethal TTK. A headshot multiplier nerf, so there is some balance in there, but then arm, torso, and leg buffs, and a recoil buff as well. Basically got reworked entirely, and I gotta say this thing is gonna be a meta SMG in my opinion, with its movement, which goes crazy. Tac stance build goes nuts. It's now increased TTK. Loving the feel of that. This thing is going to be one to really keep an eye on. You're going to want to have this on a lot of your loadouts. Thing is nice. Now the Rival 9 got a velocity buff. Woohoo! It's not going to change. The Striker 9, however, did end up seeing a close damage nerf, a range nerf, and a headshot multiplier nerf. To me, knocking it down into being more of a top tier SMG. This was obviously the #1, #2 SMG all throughout last season. This being knocked down like that and its damage being affected, while the Wasp 9 saw some nerfs too, but it was only to its max range and its mid range, and then its arm and hand multipliers, not nearly as significant of a nerf there. So Wasp 9 gonna be a little bit worse than before. Striker 9 definitely not on the same level that it was before, and really that just makes the base Striker even more valuable, even more advantageous. That and the Horus now really being my, I would say 1 and 2 two right now, potentially, as we get further and further on into the season. Those are two that I think stand out a lot. Wasp 9, though, is probably more fringe top tier absolute meta now, but we'll leave it in absolute meta for the time being. Now, the DG58 also caught a nerf here. Headshot multiplier got nerfed. That's big because its headshot multiplier was really, really good, and its velocity got dropped down, and we know that's important for hit reg feel and that hit scan range. Those nerfs, in my opinion, it's still going to be a good rifle, I think, or LMG. I think a lot of players are still going to run this because it's super easy to use, but it's more of a top tier LMG now and not nearly an absolute meta because the Holger 26, its closest comp, actually got buffed. Its headshot multiplier is better. So DG got worse, Holger got better. They were already neck and neck. I think that's a pretty clear choice, pretty clear distinction there. The Holger is the LMG you're gonna want to be using now for your mid to long range fights, without a doubt. Then lastly, they nerfed the Stalker's neck multiplier. So if you're not getting headshots, it's probably not worth using, but it can still one-shot knock, hence why it's an absolute meta and won't ever leave that unless they do take that ability away. But it's no Kar 98K, let's be clear. That being said, that's how this meta plays out right now. Just really makes it have more parity across the board. While this wasn't like a crazy balance update that included 200 different weapon changes, what they did change here actually made things very, very competitive for the most part, or more competitive than it was before the update. So always nice to see that. I like our options between absolute meta and top tier. Those are the ones you really want to focus on for your true meta loadouts. Then if you're looking for something maybe a bit more fun or fresh, look towards competitive here for your other options there. And I wouldn't really recommend going into mediocre or anything beneath that. But that's gonna wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you are always up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.